Today we're going to be comparing the two most popular Windows handhelds. The relatively new Lenovo Legion Go was just released in October and has been receiving a lot of updates from Lenovo to get it up to speed versus its arch nemesis, the Asus ROG Ally, which has been out for quite some time now, and this has given it a leg up in terms of driver updates and optimization. We'll be covering build quality, testing performance, comparing user experience, and hopefully towards the end this video will help you make a buying decision on which handheld you should get. So without further ado, let's get into it. Screens on handhelds have been getting better and better, and the ROG Ally and Legion Go do not disappoint when it comes to this department. They both have incredible screens, but they do have their differences. On the Legion Go, we have a massive 8.8-inch screen with a high resolution of 2560 by 1600p and a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. So that means the native lower resolution supported on the Legion Go would be 800p and 1200p. We also get a very high refresh rate of 144Hz for silky smooth gameplay. And finally, the colors look really great on the screen because of the 97% DCI-P3 color gamut. So yeah, the Legion Go has quite an impressive screen. Moving on to the Asus ROG Ally, and guys, I absolutely love the screen on this device. It's not too flashy, but it packs a punch. It's a 7-inch display with a resolution of 1920 by 1080p with a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, and the native lower resolution supported are 720p and 900p, which I think is the sweet spot when it comes to gaming on the ROG Ally. And while it might not be able to cover as much colors as the Legion Go because this is a 100% sRGB display, the colors still pop and look absolutely great. And the ROG Ally has one trick up its sleeve when it comes to the display, and that is that it has variable refresh rate, or VRR, which allows the frame rate to stay in sync with the display, which allows you to have a more smoother and consistent experience because it reduces screen tearing and stuttering, which who doesn't want that, right? So if I had to choose between these two displays, I know I'm gonna catch some flack for this, but I'm gonna have to go with the Asus ROG Ally. I'm someone who really values performance and a more consistent experience, and the screen on the ROG Ally just seems to be more tailored towards me. I love variable refresh rate, and a lot of the time when I'm playing a very demanding game, I'll drop the resolution to maximize performance, and 900p, like I said earlier, is like the sweet spot for gaming on this handheld because it gives you a nice boost in performance compared to 1080p while not sacrificing too much in visuals. But I can totally see why someone would prefer the Legion Go screen. Maybe they like the bigger screen, the higher resolution, and just overall, maybe they find it easier to navigate Windows 11 because it's not as squished in as the ROG Ally. Next up, we have hardware, or just the overall build quality of these devices when it comes to the buttons, feel, and all of that stuff. On the ROG Ally, we have a hard plastic shell that feels good. It doesn't bend or anything like that, even if you put pressure on it. The AVXY buttons feel membrane-like with a slight tactile feel, and of course we have the same style hybrid D-pad found on the Xbox Series controller, which feels very membrane-like. And then one of my favorite parts of the Ally are the full-size thumbsticks. Now, they're not perfect in my opinion because they are very loose. They don't have that much resistance, but I have gotten used to them, and also they're not Hall effect sticks, but I haven't ran into stick drift or had any problems with them. And the shoulder buttons and triggers feel nice, so no complaints here. So pretty solid build quality on the ROG Ally. Now moving on to the Legion Go, guys, this thing feels very premium. I mean, just starting off with the shell, I'm pretty sure it's made out of plastic, but it feels like a metal and it feels very sturdy. The AVXY buttons I think feel better on the Legion Go as well. They're very satisfying to press. And we have a more traditional D-pad here that I've really begun to like. It's flat and very tactile when pressed. The analog sticks on the Legion Go have a huge advantage over the ROG Ally because they are Hall effect sticks, so theoretically they should last longer and reduce the chance of running into stick drift. But just like the Ally sticks, I don't think they're perfect because they are small sticks, so you don't have that much room to like move around, but that's just me nitpicking. That might not be an issue for someone else. So one weird thing about the Legion Go's face buttons, and you've probably heard this a lot, is that the Legion Space and Quick Settings buttons are located in a weird spot. They're located where you would think the menu and view buttons are. So when you're playing a game, you know, if you get this handheld for the first time, you might click these a lot thinking that it's gonna pause your game, but it's actually gonna open up Legion Space or the Quick Settings side menus, so it might take some time to get used to. I know it was kind of annoying for me at first and many others, but I've gotten used to it. But yeah, it's still pretty weird to have the Legion Space and the Quick Settings buttons up here. And of course, we can't forget about back buttons. We do get back buttons on both these devices, but they are slightly different. On the Ally, we have two back buttons, and they're more like paddles than buttons, and they have a very satisfying tactile press. On the Legion Go, we have more traditional like buttons that you just click and they work. However, the positioning of the back buttons on the controllers are different from one another. Now, the Legion Go has some really cool stuff when it comes to the controls that really separates itself from the ROG Ally, such as the touchpad and the ability to literally detach the controllers, prop the kickstand, and play in tabletop mode like a Nintendo Switch, and the right controller literally turns into a mouse, which is freaking awesome. So when it comes to the controls, I'm gonna have to take the Legion Go. Lenovo did a really great job in being creative with it, and also they give you a carrying case, and not just like any carrying case, it's actually a high quality carrying case. So props to them for not only being creative, but also, like I said, giving us a carrying case. Now I know talking about ports is pretty boring, but there are some pretty big differences between the Legion Go and ROG Ally that are pretty important, especially if you're looking to use an external GPU with these devices. Starting off with the Ally, we have a headphone jack and a badly placed micro SD card reader, which I actually had to RMA mine to get it fixed because it did fry 2 of my micro SD cards. This big port here is for the Asus XG Mobile external GPUs. And take note here, these are the only external GPUs you can use with the ROG Ally unless you do some tinkering and some modifications to the device to use other external GPUs. But other than that, you're locked to XG Mobile external GPUs. And as you can see, the prices here are not cheap. A 3080 will set you back $1,000. But hey, I guess you get better performance. And of course, we have a USB Type-C port for charging. On the Legion Go, we have not just one, but 2 Type-C ports that can both charge the device. One is located at the bottom and one is at the top. And going back to the external GPU situation, on the Legion Go, we have a lot more options to choose from because you can simply connect to the Type-C connector at the top, which gives you cheaper options as well than the ROG Ally, which is set to the XG Mobile GPUs. And like we saw, those are not cheap. So yeah, that's a huge advantage for the Legion Go. And then we have a micro SD card reader, which I haven't had any issues with, unlike the Ally. And of course, we have a headphone jack as well. Moving on to the performance test, I tested both devices at 30 watt TDP at 720p, 900p, and 1080p while running the latest BIOS and driver updates for both devices. And first up, we have Batman Arkham Knight. And while driving through Gotham City at 720p with low settings, we get a frame rate average in the 50s for both handhelds. But it seems like the Legion Go pulls ahead by just a few more frames. The latest BIOS and driver updates have really upped the performance on the Legion Go, which is great to see. The Ally, on the other hand, is averaging in the mid 50s with a slightly higher 1% low, but for the most part, not a major difference here at 720p. At 900p, we do lose some frames on both devices. On the Legion Go, we drop from the high 50s to the low 50s, but our 1% low does increase by about 5 frames. On the Ally, we're in the mid 50s at 720p, but now we're hovering in the high 40s. So once again, it looks like the Legion Go is pulling ahead by just a few frames, and this could be because of the faster RAM. At 1080p, as expected, we do lose more frames. The Legion Go is still ahead with a frame rate average in the mid to high 40s, and the ROG Ally trails behind with an average FPS in the mid 40s. On to Spider-Man Remastered, just swinging through New York at 720p with the low preset and FSR 2.1 set to performance. Both handhelds pretty much look identical. The Legion Go does pull ahead by like 2 frames as we get an FPS average of 83. And on the Ally, we get an FPS average between 81 and 82, so pretty much no difference really, but the faster RAM in the Legion Go does seem to give it a slight edge so far. Moving over to 900p, we actually see a more noticeable difference. The Legion Go has about 4 or 5 more frames and an FPS average in the high 70s, while the Ally trails behind again with an FPS average in the low 70s. Switching over to 1080p, we actually see the Ally keep up. Both devices are pretty much identical. There really isn't a difference once again. Spider-Man Remastered is pretty well optimized and both devices are performing really well with this game. Next up, we have Grand Theft Auto 5, and for some reason, I'm not sure why, but my frame rate was capped at 72 FPS, even though in game I had the FPS cap at like 120 Hertz. So yeah, I wasn't sure why this was happening, but the good news is this game plays really great on both the Ally and Legion Go. At 720p normal settings, we have the same FPS average of 72 for both the Ally and Legion Go, but the Legion Go does have a higher 1% low. And at 900p, we keep the same FPS average of 72 and we gain a higher 1% low for both devices, so once again, very playable. At 1080p, once again, we keep the same frame rate average of 72, but the Legion Go's 1% low does dip into the high 40s and the Ally maintains it at around 60 FPS. But all around, this game is very playable, which is just insane. Being able to play a game like GTA 5 on the go, despite it being old now, it still holds up graphically in my opinion. Up next, we have Red Dead Redemption 2 with a mix of low and medium settings with FSR 2.0 set to performance. And we're just running the in-game benchmark, and at 720p, we have the Ally pulling ahead with a frame rate average in the mid 70s, while the Legion Go trails behind with an FPS average in the low 70s. There's also a pretty big difference in the 1% low, as the Ally has a much higher 1% low. At 900p, we still maintain a playable frame rate in the mid 60s for both handhelds, but once again, the Ally does have a higher 1% low. Moving over to 1080p, the Legion Go gives us an average FPS right at 60, while the ROG Ally just misses it by like 3 or 4 frames. but I would say it's overall pretty playable on both these devices at 1080p. When it comes to speakers, the ROG Ally really dominates the segment because they're front-firing speakers, they sound great and they can get really loud. On the other hand, the Legion Go speakers are located at the top, so naturally the sound is going to be going away from you, and they just don't get as loud as the ROG Ally speakers. But here's a quick sound test comparing these two devices. Now, moving on to the operating system, they both run on Windows 11, but they do have their own custom UIs that are supposed to give you like a more console-like experience. On the Ally, we have Armoury Crate, which I have really begun to like, and it's become so much more smooth as time has passed with all the updates. You can find and add games or applications in the first tab called Game Library. In the Settings tab, you can change all sorts of things from button calibration to visuals, add keyboard shortcuts, and of course add more options to the command center, which we'll talk about more in a bit. And then in the last tab called Content, this is where you can check for Armoury Crate updates, look for recommended or discounted games, and more. Going back to the command center, this is one of my favorite things about Armoury Crate because not only can you customize it and add different options, but just being able to toggle things like FPS monitor, keyboard, and resolution while on the fly makes the user experience much better. Moving on to the Legion Go, we have a custom UI called Legion Space, where you can download games and add applications to the library section. You can visit the game store, which defaults to Games Planet, which is a third-party game key seller. I bought Red Dead Redemption 2 from them earlier when I first got my Legion Go, and I didn't run into any issues, but there is like a review process. So after buying a game from Games Planet, you'll have to wait for a bit, and then you should receive your code. And yeah, everything should be fine after that. And if you don't want to buy from Games Planet, you can add other game stores such as Steam, Xbox, Rockstar, GOG, and more. In the settings tab, you can tweak things like the TDP resolution and update and adjust the controller settings. And then lastly, we have the cloud games and Android games tab if you want to stream games or play mobile games. And just like the Ally, we do have featured and recommended games that are on discount, but they are more in your face rather than being hidden like the Ally. And if you want to navigate Legion Space quickly, pressing the menu button on the bottom left corner opens up a side menu where you can see your recently played games. Go to the settings page, and if you press the 4 cubes at the top, you'll be taken to the Windows 11 home screen. And similar to the command center on the Ally, we have a quick settings button that allows you to change things like the performance mode, set a custom TDP mode, change the brightness and resolution of the screen, and more. Currently, in my opinion, I feel like Armoury Crate is the better custom UI because it has more features that are more tailored towards gamers, and because the Ally has been out longer, Asus has been able to, smooth it out and make it feel a lot more smooth than Legion Space. But it will be interesting to see how Legion Space will evolve over time because it is just software which can be fixed and have things added to it, so I'm definitely looking forward to that. For storage, the Ally comes with a 512GB SSD and there are no other options to choose from. And on the Legion Go, we get a 512GB SSD as well for the $700 variant, and for $50 more, you can get a terabyte of storage. You can always upgrade the internal storage on both these devices. I haven't done it on the Legion Go, but I did do it on my Asus ROG Ally, and it was pretty easy, honestly. I upgraded it to a terabyte of storage, and there's tons of videos out there showing you how to do it for both these devices. I would also like to add that the Ally uses the more traditional 2230 SSDs that are also used in the Steam Deck, whereas on the Legion Go, it uses 2242 SSDs, which are more on the less common side. Okay, battery life on both these devices is not great. I play them at 30-watt TDP all the time because a lot of the games I play are demanding, so I want as much power as possible, and I maybe get like an hour of gameplay before I gotta plug them in. And literally while I'm making this video, my Legion Go actually died on me. So yeah, there you go. I think battery life is one thing that really needs improvement when it comes to PC handhelds. The only handheld that I've tried that has given me a satisfying battery life is the Nintendo Switch OLED. But then again, that console is not pushing out the kind of performance that you're getting with these handhelds. So yeah, if you're gonna be going out for a long time, I would just advise taking your charger just in case. The pricing for the ROG Ally is much different from launch. Originally, this thing cost $700, but currently you can pick up the Z1 Extreme variant for $599 just 6 months after release. Now, I know a lot of us who picked up this device on launch day are probably like, what the frick? But I guess that's what happens when you're like a guinea pig for a new product. The Legion Go is still priced at its original MSRP of $700 for the 512GB version and $750 for the 1TB version. Now, going back to the ROG Ally's price cut or discount, whatever you want to call it, I didn't expect to see it so soon, but that's what happens when competition comes. You know, the Legion Go came out and all of a sudden we start seeing price cuts on the ROG Ally, and I'm definitely here to see it. I love competition. It's better for the consumer. So yeah, currently the Ally is priced very competitively, and I'm sure it's swiping some sales away from the Legion Go at the moment. I also wanted to talk about long-term support. Since the Ally's launch, Asus has done a great job in keeping it updated with the BIOS and general updates, so no complaints so far with support. And I'm hoping it stays that way. I want to see the Ally supported like what Valve is doing with the Steam Deck, and on the other hand, Lenovo has been doing a pretty good job as well in keeping the Legion Go updated. We just got a new update to the BIOS and drivers, which boosted my performance significantly, and they fixed the broken FPS monitor issue I ran into. But of course, this device is still relatively new, so we'll just have to wait and see how Lenovo treats it and updates it and supports it over time. But once again, I'm hoping to see like Valve-like support when it comes to the Legion Go from Lenovo. Okay, wow, that was a handful, but now we're at the finale, so which one should you choose? So I think it comes down to your personal preference and overall use of these devices. These are computers at the end of the day, so they have other uses other than just playing games. But I think if you're looking to save money and gaming is your only focus, maybe the ROG Ally might be the best option because you're still getting great performance, a 120Hz 1080p screen, and an overall smoother device due to it being out longer. But the Legion Go might be for you if you really want that bigger screen and you're not just going to be gaming, you're also going to be using it for other things like surfing the web and doing other computer stuff. And you want the other cool features that come with the Legion Go, like the detachable controllers, FPS mode, and the trackpad. I also feel like the potential for the Legion Go is very high. It just needs more updates to make it feel smoother. If I had to choose between these two currently, I would go with the Ally because it just feels smoother to me, and I really love having VRR, but that is subject to change as the Legion Go gets more and more updates to bring it up to speed.